terrific guest with me today, and we're going to chat for 25 or so minutes with none other than Silicon Valley legend and good friend Aneel Bhusri. Many of you know Aneel was the driving force at PeopleSoft, and then he was a venture capitalist at a very renowned firm here in the Valley, Greylock, and then was the co-founder of Workday, which has gone on to do incredible things in the past decade plus. So it's terrific, Aneel. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
And thanks, Amar. It's good to be here, and a belated happy birthday.
Thank you so much, Aneel. Appreciate it. And typically we would both be in Bangalore right now, but I hope we can bring the same energy we would if we were on stage there. But terrific to have you. I know you've had a terrific journey in the enterprise software space, the space I love and you love so much. So how was it kind of going from, an executive at PeopleSoft to then becoming a venture capitalist, playing that role, and then becoming CEO of Workday? What was that journey like for you?
Well, I had the benefit of actually having a summer internship in a venture capital firm with a person named George Still, who continues to be one of my mentors and on the board of Workday. He was actually the person that introduced me to Dave Duffield at PeopleSoft. And so I did have a little bit of a taste. And when 99 came along and the board and Dave decided it was time for Dave to retire, really Dave's choice, I was the heir apparent. I wasn't ready to be the next CEO of PeopleSoft. I'll be the first one to admit that. And I looked around and I love startups. I love entrepreneurship. I love being involved with creating new products from scratch. And I thought, let me try my hand at venture capital. And I would say at the start, it was a shock to the system. I went from a 7,000 person company to an office of 5 people. And for venture capitalists, you really don't spend time in the office. You spend time with portfolio companies. But over time, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting to know many entrepreneurs and helping them along the way of creating great companies. But then fast forward to 2003, I'm still on the board at PeopleSoft with my mentor and longtime friend, Dave Duffield, but no longer active in the operations. Oracle launches a hostile takeover on PeopleSoft, as you know well, and it was hostile with a capital H. It was 18 months. The Department of Justice got involved, and towards the tail end, the board asked Dave and I to go back. They fired the CEO and asked Dave and I to go back to run the company. And in the middle of a hostile takeover, we had so much fun back together at PeopleSoft. We didn't prevail. Oracle was able to take over PeopleSoft. Dave and I enjoyed working together, and I've been working on an idea that ultimately became Workday. And credit my friend Mark Benioff, who I saw was doing some amazing things in CRM. Thought, well, someone's going to do that for HR and finance. And my big thing that the world should be grateful to me for as it relates to Workdays, I talked Dave Duffield into his 5th startup. At 65, I said, Dave, you've got one more in you, and he did. And it was an honor to start a company with Dave. He'll always be my best friend and mentor. And today we're almost 13,000 employees, $4 billion in revenues. I'm sometimes pinching myself as to how this all happened.
That's an amazing, incredible journey so far, Aneel. But tell us what you got into HR, then you went to the financials. What is the 5-year? Where does PeopleSoft? What do you look like in 5 years from now? What's the vision?
Not PeopleSoft, Workday, right?
Workday, sorry, Workday.
So we started out with HR, and we knew immediately we were going to go into finance because HR and finance just go so nicely together. And we have thought about ourselves as really the ERP backbone for a non-manufacturing company. HR we can sell to all manufacturing companies as well, but financials is really for the services sector. And over time, our vision expanded. The first thing we recognized was the growing importance of planning. So we brought planning into the mix. The importance of really true built-in native analytics. So we built out a Hadoop-based analytic platform called Prism Analytics. And the vision was to bring planning, execution, and analysis into one unified system. As you know, historically those systems came from different vendors, different user experiences, different data models, different security models, and it was an IT nightmare to get those systems to talk together. So we actually are taking this plan we call Plan, Execute, Analyze, Extend, where you can plan in Workday, you can transact with HR and finance and procurement, you can analyze with Prism Analytics, and the basic premise is you're in one enterprise business system from end to end. And that's really the vision we've been executing on for the last several years. The big change, the two really big changes in the last few months. Number one, we added an extensibility framework, Workday Extend, to give customers the ability to extend the applications. It's something that's long in the making, and we were just careful to do it the right way. And going back about 5 or 6 years, we made a huge investment in machine learning. And we didn't do it feature by feature. We built the technology truly into the foundation of our technology, so that every application can use the machine learning algorithms. And today we're seeing it being used at many, many customer sites. And as I look forward over those next 5 years, there's still a lot of work to do. The next pillar we're building out is procurement. And we have to work with our customers to help them really get their data managed and harnessed in a way that they can really leverage the machine learning capabilities to make better decisions.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you've got a full plate ahead of you. And as you look at that, how do you envision the role of partners? I know the ERP space is more than what you have. So you have other applications. Let's say it's CRM or it's traditional manufacturing ERP. How do you play in the bigger space?
Well, I think different than the last generation of ERP systems where we were all pretty closed, the technologies were closed, and I think the companies were closed-minded. This is a very different world, and customers expect us to play well together. And so we've been very open to partnerships across the board. Probably our best partnerships are with Salesforce around CRM, integration to our HR and financial systems, and then Microsoft with the productivity applications, Office 365, and Teams is doing great right now. So it's been around those kinds of applications that we've partnered with Okta, Box, Dropbox. We try to bring what we're really good at, HR and finance, and bring the work to where employees are actually getting work done, the natural workspace like Teams or Slack, and make it seamlessly integrated out of the box. And so that really has been our strategy. Whatever's right for the customer is right for us. And so far it's worked really well, and everyone's playing nicely together.
No, that's terrific. And people in the old days, if you remember, talked about web services and all that kind of stuff. And now it looks like it's kind of transitioned more to an API kind of a technology system. Where do you see all that playing out in your mind?
I still think it's web services, but it's more smaller real-time web services manifested as these very clean APIs. And for all of us, it's just part of our life. We have to be good at that discipline. And for us, we've always been an open system, but with the newer technologies, the newer integration technologies, we're constantly adding to our footprint of APIs to make it easy for customers to either get data in or get data out of Workday, or in some cases just run a workflow across many applications. So it's a big part of what a modern system needs to look like today.
Well, that's terrific. And let's talk for a minute about your international strategy and stuff. So where do you see Workday playing globally? And as you know, a lot of the audience here that's looking at us today and talking to us and watching us is from India. Can you talk a little bit about where you see Asia and India fitting into your strategy and what that means for Workday?
So we are fully committed to being a truly global company. We obviously started out in North America. Our first areas of expansion really were in Europe. But from day one, we set out to serve the largest multinationals in the world. We were not going after the SMB market. We're going after very large companies. And as a result, we had to build a global system from day one. And I like to joke that when our first 50 engineers, 25 were from outside the US, and we had a soccer team before we had a basketball team. And it just spoke to the very international nature of our early days at Workday. And we had huge customers like Flextronics and Coca-Cola and many others of that, General Motors, many of others that are truly global. HP was one of our very early global customers. So the product works across the globe. And then it's all about the sales and marketing investment. And we've been careful to do it probably more serially than in parallel. So Europe, I think we're well situated in, and now Asia Pacific has been our newest area of investment. First Japan, Korea, and we're coming to India. I can't give you a specific date, but not in the not so distant future, we'll be selling and servicing customers in India. Those are the big geographies. Our simple model is we follow where the Fortune 500 companies reside, since that's a good telltale sign of the size of that market. And obviously India has a number of very large companies. We continue to be more focused on the larger companies than the SMBs. And so that dictates going to a country like Japan that actually has the second highest number of Fortune 500 companies outside the US.
No, that's great. So there's a question from one of our viewers here, which is, so what happens to what is your vision? What happens to the SMB space, for example? What happens in that realm?
I think there's room for players in the HR space. It typically means that you're a payroll provider, and you're providing not just the software, but services like float, like cutting checks, wiring taxes, the service bureau components around payroll. That's not a business Workday's in. That's a business an ADP is in, and payroll and HR tend to be complicated businesses country by country. So there's always room in that marketplace. You do have companies like ADP that have been there for a long time, but you've got new players like Paycom. We're doing quite well. So the new version of Ceridian is doing quite well. So, but I think there's room. And with NetSuite being bought by Oracle, there's really nobody's serving that SMB market as a standalone vendor for financials. So I think that's also an opportunity.
So what advice would you give for the next crop of entrepreneurs that are coming up in India and in other Asian countries and stuff? What's your take on those guys, and what would you tell them?
Well, the first thing is that starting a company is not to be taken lightly. And everybody talks about the successes. A lot of companies don't make it. So assume you're one of the successes, but it's not straight and to the right. It took Workday 2 years to land our first customer. And I remember at one point, Dave and I were asking ourselves, well, maybe we're just too early. Maybe, something's not right. And we were a little too early on the market, but it was a tough first 2 years trying to get the product right. Ultimately, our first 10 customers were friends of Dave and friends of mine. We just convinced, just try it out so we could at least get some experience using it. So you've got to be in it for the long run. It doesn't work right out of the gates, and you've got to maneuver along the way. The second piece is solve a problem that matters. Don't do something that is incrementally better. If you're 10% better than something that a big company does, the customer's going to choose the big company. It's not worth that additional 10% benefit. If you're 50% better or 100% better in the way that cloud was that much better than on-premise applications, then a large company will look at you and say, hey, this is so disruptive, I need to take a look at it. Maybe I'll try it out. So solve something that really matters and do it in a disruptive way.
And that's the beauty of the enterprise space, right? You sell value, the customer sees value and buys it. The other thing a lot of young entrepreneurs forget is companies are formed over 10 to 20 years, right? So how long have you started, what, 2003?
2005. So we're on our 16th year.
Right. So it took you this long to
Yeah.
be, so you were not an overnight success.
No, when we went public, one of the TV announcers said, "Wow, you guys are an overnight success." It's like, well, we've been at it for 8 years. No one noticed.
Yeah, exactly. So
It's
the
a
other
long,
thing
long time.
yeah, the other thing, Anil, that you've been known for is this maniacal focus on the customer, right? So tell me how this permeates the culture of Workday. How do you view the customer in your life?
Well, the customer is the reason for being. And I think sometimes enterprise companies lose sight of that the reason we're in business is to serve customers. But different than most companies, the way we do that is we actually prioritize employees number one. And I'm super proud that we're consistently rated as one of the top 10 companies to work for this last go around by Great Place to Work Institute in the world, not just in the US. And then we create an incentive system for our employees to take care of customers. I've never seen a company that has happy customers and unhappy employees. You've got to have those happy employees. You've got to motivate them. You've got to empower them, and then you provide the right incentives to take care of customers. And they do. I mean, it really is that simple. If you have a mindset that your employees will take care of customers, they will. You reward it publicly. If someone does an amazing job, even at 12,000 people, I'll write a note to the entire employee base about what one individual did to take care of customers. I'm an open phone to all of our customers. They all have my cell phone or email, and I get calls all the time. And the rest of the company sees that wow, okay, Aneel will take any call from a customer. And I remind people it's because, as I said from the start, that's the reason for being. We're in business to serve our customers. And my mentor and friend Dave Duffield has said for many years on his gravestone he wants it to be written, Dave Duffield, he had happy customers. That just permeates who we are.
No, that's terrific. And what kind of incentives do you give employees at Workday to kind of get that focus on customers? Yeah.
Well, so every year we have a company goal of a revenue goal, an innovation goal, and a customer satisfaction goal. And historically, there'd be something important tied to it, whether it was a bonus, stock bonus. One year it was a incentive plan. One year it was an additional week off. There's always something that is the driver. And every employee is tied to that same incentive of 95% customer satisfaction or higher. And on January 31st, we know if we got to that goal or not. And we could be on it on the 30th and dip below it on the 31st. So it just creates this mindset of being on top of it at all times. And we've also been able to translate that into, when you have high referenceability, you get better sales. And so the salespeople have realized, hey, don't sell beyond what Workday has. Sell what we have, sell our customer success, and get our prospects to talk to our customers, and it works. And so that's part of the driving force as well. 401k plan was one of the things we had one year, which was really popular. And you get every employee driving for the same outcome, for that 95% customer satisfaction. And it's amazing what can happen.
Oh, that's great. The other thing, a question from one of our viewers here is, you've spoken, I know we're in the pandemic, as we know right now, and I think you've called for people to get back to work at some point in time, or what's your take on what happens post-pandemic with tech companies and their workforce?
We're being very careful. No one is in the office in the US. In places like Japan and South Korea, where they're much better at wearing masks and have done a better job with the pandemic, people are going back into the office. But in the US and in Europe, no one's in the office. We have said that we're not going to ask anyone to go into the office until July of this year. We said that several months ago, and that's pretty consistent with other technology companies. When the pandemic is over, though, I don't share that view that people should stay working remotely and work from home. I don't think that's the way to build a great culture. I don't think that you get collaboration in the way you get that those moments of real innovation when people are sitting around a table together, not on a Zoom call. Nothing against Zoom, but collaboration is really hard on Zoom. And so for a certain group of folks, maybe it makes sense to stay working remotely, but we expect when it's safe to go back in the office that people will go back in the office. And I will always believe in the office culture. Otherwise, you don't really have a culture. And we're very committed to that. And I think what we'll end up doing, and I think other companies will end up doing, like Salesforce, is instead of everybody working remotely, it's letting people work from home 1 to 2 days a week. There's no question that there's a benefit to that, but that doesn't mean you have to move to some remote part of the country or the world and just dial in on a daily basis. That's not the kind of company that Workday is.
Another question from the audience is there's been so much talk recently of everybody running away, bailing out of California and the Bay Area, and you and I have been here for decades. What is your perspective on what is happening with the Bay Area in terms of tech companies, tech workforce? Is the Bay Area still going to be kind of the epicenter of innovation and so forth in the future?
I hope so. We have no plans to leave California. I will say we've diversified our talent outside of California. So we now have a big development center in Dublin, Ireland. We have a big development center in Boulder, Colorado. California is still our main development center, and will continue to be that way. But the price of everything in California is too high. Cost of living is too high. The competition for engineers is off the charts, and people just jump from company to company. And then the taxation system is not working. It's the highest tax state in the country, and it's hard to see what those taxes are going towards. And I'm sure you agree with that too. I do think there has to be some reform on that level, but also no one's been able to replicate Silicon Valley. It just has never happened. Everybody talks about it, how this is the next Silicon Valley and this is the next Silicon Valley, and it just hasn't happened anywhere in the world. And I think it's that confluence of venture capital, of management talent, of big companies and small companies. There's something in the water about just wanting to be an innovator and entrepreneur. So I don't think it's going away. The companies that are moving are more mature companies. I don't see startups moving away. I see more mature companies that are probably looking for a lower cost of operations to move away. It'll be a good
So
question.
another question on startup. Yeah, sorry. Another question on startups and startup founders. How does a startup, how do they work with Workday? I mean, if I was a company that had a partner model and wanted to work with you, I'm a small company. How do I go about working with you?
Well, the first thing is to make sure we try to sign up partners where we know they're solving a real customer problem, and we can vouch for the fact that that partner is going to do it the right way. And so, if you're working on something that you think would be beneficial to Workday customers and you really care about customer satisfaction, just email me and I'll route it to the right partner folks. And it's just Aneel@workday.com. It's really easy.
Good. And especially our crowd in India would know how to spell it. So,
well, I'm two E's as opposed to the
two E's. Yeah, that's true. That's
yeah.
true. So in terms of Workday itself, you have a venture capital arm. Talk a little bit about how you invest your own monies at the company.
Well, having spent 15 years at a venture firm, you learn that most of the great ideas come from small companies and a group of small people. I think about Workday. There were probably 20 engineers at the start of Workday that created this absolutely brand new, really cool technology platform. Not hundreds, 20. And so when I was more active in the venture world and still at Workday, I could keep an eye on startups. But once we got to a size where being CEO was a full-time job for me, I felt like we no longer had a view into what was happening in the startup world. And the companies we invest in, we're not trying to compete against these companies. We're very clear about that. They are typically complementary systems that are adjacent to Workday, where it helps out the customer solution. It solves a gap in our footprint. And if it works really well, we might actually acquire that company. And in the case of Scout, which was a very cool sourcing company, our customers just loved it. We used it, we loved it, and we thought we just need to make this part of Workday. It's not anything we're going to get to for the next 3 or 4 years. And we love this team. They're just like us. And so the first plan around the investment is really to broaden the reach of our systems and fill in the gaps. But the second is, hey, if it works out really well, it might be an acquisition target, and if the acquisition does come to pass, you have the benefit of knowing the team, working with the team. A lot of the risk has been taken out on both sides. The small company now knows Workday and says, hey, they're good people. We wouldn't mind being part of Workday. So it's been fantastic so far.
Fabulous. So Aneel, thank you for taking so much time with us today. So many takeaways, but the one I will leave with here is really happy employees equal happy customers. I think that's something that you have implemented so beautifully there. Once again, I want to thank you so much for being with us here at NPC, and I want to turn it back to our host. Thank you.